In this episode of the How To series, we're going to have a look at the rest of Season 1 with Aston Villa and also have a look at how I develop youth players in Football Manager. Okay, welcome back to the video, to the series. This is the final episode in the series, and what we're going to do today in part 1, we're going to do the rest of the first season, or Season 1, review to see how we finished off in the series. Did we win anything? Where did we finish in the league? All that kind of stuff. In the second half of the video, we're going to get into how I develop youth players in Football Manager, and particularly in FM24, because there is a slight difference this year, which we'll get into later on in the video. So as we get into this, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on, all that sort of amazing stuff. Especially hitting the likes really does help out, and it's always lovely to get a subscriber come through every now and then as well. So thank you very much in advance. Right, so the last time we were here, I think we'd played the Nottingham Forest game and we were about to play against Tottenham, and that was the halfway point in the season. And as you can see from the start of the season, as we said in the previous video, I'm not going to go through it in depth because we've already done that, but a good start against Man City, a poor game against Brighton, but then after that we were absolutely incredible. Just went on an amazing run in all competitions as well. Since then though, since the Nottingham Forest game, we then lost 1-0 to Tottenham, and I'm just going to turn on Premier League only for this. So yeah, we lost 1-0 to Tottenham. Then we played Luton at home and won 6-0. Get rid of that. Boubacar Kamara, Ollie Watkins with a couple, Leon Bailey and Douglas Luiz and Diego Carlos. Diego Carlos with a goal as well. Then we lost to Fulham 1-0. Then we drew 0-0 with Liverpool. At this stage, bear in mind these results that had happened as well, we'd only won, 2 games out of our last 7. And I really was starting to think that our league hopes, the faint hopes we had of winning the league, were actually slipping away. But then we went on a nice run in February. 4 wins for 4 games. Leon Bailey with a couple against Nottingham Forest. Then we beat Brighton 3-0, avenging the defeat earlier in the season with Ollie Watkins, Nicholas Pepe and Diego Carlos. Then Ollie Watkins and Marvellous Nakamba coming on as a substitute in a 2-0 win against Man City. And then a 2-1 win against Burnley with Douglas Luiz and Nicholas Pepe. Then we carried that form into March with a 2-1 win against Arsenal, who were top of the table at the time. So that was really handy in terms of closing the gap on them. Ollie Watkins with both goals. Then we lost 2-0 to Brentford. Typical with the way this game can go sometimes, that you put an absolutely amazing performance there and then after an international break you then go and lose 2-0. But then we won 2-0 against Bournemouth, Ollie Watkins and Philip Coutinho scoring there. Then an unbeaten April with a draw, 2-2 draw at home to Manchester United and a boring goalless 0-0 draw at home to Crystal Palace. But then we beat West Ham 2-1, Newcastle 1-0 and Everton 4-0. Ollie Watkins getting 4 goals in them 3 games, Leon Bailey getting a couple, and Facundo Buonanotte. We'll get to him in a moment. He came in the January transfer window. Then we finished the season with a 1-0 win against Chelsea for Ollie Watkins, 2-1 win against Sheffield United thanks to Lucas Digne and Ollie Watkins, and Philip Coutinho getting the only goal in the 1-0 win at home against Wolves on the last day of the season. So we actually won 6 out of our last 6 games. It was a pretty good end to the season, really, with only 1 defeat in amongst all that. As a result of that, we go to the Premier League table and title holders Aston Villa. I was stunned. Now, the one thing I will say is if you look at this Premier League table, there's no one really running away with the league. I mean, in most seasons, in a Premier League season, you will get a team on 90 odd points, 95, 98 points sort of thing, 90 points minimum. The fact that the nearest other than us that got to that was Arsenal with 85, Man United with 80, then you've got Liverpool with 77 and Man City 75. Now, I don't know about your saves, but in my offline Arsenal save that I do, Liverpool and Man City are usually right up there, hitting that 90, 95 point mark pretty much all the time. Man United usually do quite well in the game as well. What I also do notice with Football Manager in general is that Chelsea, Tottenham and Newcastle never seem to have a great first season. I think they might have got Chelsea and Tottenham mixed up in terms of where they may finish this season. Tottenham fans are probably going to hate me for saying that because I've put them outside the European places. But you look at Newcastle with the money that is at Newcastle Football Club, and they finished 13th on 46 points. In terms of our performance, 86 points, only 26 goals conceded, in the wrong column. Only 26 goals conceded, which I believe was a joint best defensive record with Liverpool, if we just filter it by that. So yeah, joint best defensive record with Liverpool. In terms of goals scored, we didn't have a great start to the season in terms of goals scored. We seemed to pick up a bit in the second half, but we were, sixth? Yes, we were sixth in terms of goals scored. So that's an area we need to improve on next season, is by scoring more goals. But very happy with our defensive record as well. In terms of the actual points tally, there you go. We were 1 point ahead of Arsenal. Now, if we look at the transfer market or the transfer window, in January we brought in Facundo Buonanotte on a loan deal, £850,000 loan in total, and we also brought in Ezequiel Fernandez for 7 million, potentially raising to 9 million. So Buonanotte obviously not in Brighton's first team plans. He is available for 12 million. I don't know if that's his actual release clause. Let's have a look. No, his minimum fee release clause is 62 million. But for some reason they've got him down as £12 million being the value. But either way, he is actually a pretty decent player. He didn't play a great deal for me because, if I'm being honest, I completely forgot that we had him. And it was only when I got a message from, I don't know if it was Unai Emery or whoever, not Unai Emery, from De Zerbi or whoever the Brighton manager is, that we're not playing him enough, that I then remembered I had him. And I was bringing him on as a substitute. I gave him, as you can see, a start. He looks fairly decent, so he might be a player that if you're starting out a Football Manager save, maybe inquire about him, maybe get him on loan, buy him, depending on the team you're with. Ezequiel Fernandez, we got him, like I say, for 7 million raising to 9 million from Boca. He's been with Boca all his life, and he is a decent player. He's listed here that he can play in the central midfield role. Deep line playmaker, advanced playmaker, Carrilero, central midfielder, Mazzala, a whole range of areas. We had him in here as the defensive midfielder, which is not one of his stronger positions. He'd prefer to be a deep line playmaker there. But as you can see from all the arrows going up, he is doing well. And his average rating for the league of 6.89 is a bit misleading, I feel. He's only had 2 assists in 16 appearances. And actually, from the 16 appearances, 15 of them were starts as well. From the moment he came in, he was pretty much a mainstay within our team. If we have a look at our tactic, Fernandez just slotted in straight away there. It's McGinn was actually out injured at the time for 3 months, I think it was. And that's what made me delve into the transfer market for a central midfielder. And he just slotted in there. I moved Douglas Luiz forward into John McGinn's position. And since then, John McGinn struggled to get back into the team. He really has. We've had issues with Martinez. That's why Livakovic is up here, but we'll get to those shortly. So yeah, in terms of Ezequiel Fernandez, again, if you can get him in your save, 7 million raising to 9 million is an absolute bargain for someone who's 21 years old, already 3 stars. He's got potential as well. You could find some real use out of this guy, because like I say, playing either of those positions, and absolutely I'd recommend that player. Now, if we have a look at our medical centre, because we did suffer quite a few injuries. As you can see, we're scrolling and scrolling. It's going on forever. I don't know how many names are actually on this. I'm not going to count them now. But if we do it by date order, up to here, yeah, so this is most recent. So we've got, so Matty Cash and Courtney House are out injured at the moment. If we scroll down to here, this is where we started from. It was around here for Tino Livramento out with a slight injury. During this area, we had John McGinn there with his injury that kept up. He was actually out for 2 months, not 3. Tino Livramento's out for a few weeks with moderate one. Luca Digne was out for a couple of weeks with a moderate. But Emiliano Martinez did get a hip injury, which kept him out for 3 months. So that's why Livakovic came into the team. A few more minors and slights. Then we get a couple more moderates with... So we had our goalkeeper. This was their backup young goalkeeper. Got an injury. Another Livramento injury. And Leon Bailey out injured with a moderate one. Again, it was only for a couple of weeks. But these injuries really did start to pile up towards the end of the season, or at least in the second half of the season. 60 injuries so far this season. Expected total 75. So apparently we're performing well in terms of injuries. We've not hit the expected amount. So I suppose technically that's a positivity. If we get back into the schedule though, and we take out the Premier League and we'll put in the Carabao Cup. I think we'd already gone out of that before. Oh, there you go. So we went out of that in the semi-final stage against Manchester United. We'd beaten Brighton, Arsenal and Liverpool on our way to the semi-finals. Was it semi-final? No, it's the quarterfinals, wasn't it? Semi-final. Yeah, semi-final. And then the home game against Man United was a 1-1 draw. Douglas Luiz scoring for us there. And then the away leg, we lost 3-1, a Victor Lindelof own goal. It was a really poor performance. We didn't deserve to go through. Then we get into the FA Cup. And in the third round, we played Sheffield Wednesday, won 2-0. Ollie Watkins and Matty Cash on the score sheet. A 5-1 win away to Stockport. An own goal, then Archer with 2 goals, Coutinho and Livramento on the score sheet. Then in the fifth round, we played Ipswich, beat them 1-0, Diego Carlos, and then really disappointed with this, going out in the quarterfinals to Leicester City. Granted, they have been promoted from the Championship, but to go out in the quarterfinals to a Championship team in the FA Cup was massively disappointing. If we have a look at the FA Cup and just see who ended up winning it, holders Liverpool, they beat Leicester in the final. So there you go. The team that knocked us out actually got to the final. I'm quite interested to see what Leicester's progression was in this competition. Don't want it in that far back. But in the semi-final... So, okay, they knocked out Arsenal after extra time in the semi-final. Knocked us out in the quarterfinals. Then they knocked out Everton. So they were knocking out Premier League teams all the way through this competition. Where are they in here? Leicester. There you go. Swansea the Championship 4-1. In the third round, I mean, it might actually be easier if we just focused on Leicester's schedule itself. Here we go. So, how did they actually do in the other cup comments? So they went out in the first round of the Carabao Cup. So they went in at the third round, beating Crystal Palace. So Palace, Swansea, Everton, Villa, Arsenal, and then they had Liverpool. Leicester had a great FA Cup, let's be honest. So well played Leicester City for their FA Cup run. Then we get the Conference League. And we'll add that in. And as you can see, we won the Europa Conference League. We've done a domestic league and European Cup double this season with Aston Villa. I mean, it's crazy. It really is. The group stages you all knew about from the last video. After that, we had Union SG, who are Belgium, are they? Yeah, Belgium team. Beat them 5-2 on aggregate. Consa, 2 with Pepe, Coutinho, Matty Cash getting the goals in those games. Then we played Eintracht Frankfurt, who I kind of thought at the time this was going to be a tricky tie because Eintracht Frankfurt are a good side. They've got some good players in their team as well. And we won the first leg at home 1-0 with Nicolas Pepe. After winning that only 1-0, I was a bit nervous. I did feel that perhaps we needed to win that 2-0, 3-0, something like that. Done the business in the away leg though. 2-2 draw. Leon Bailey getting a goal in extra time for us. Nicolas Pepe also getting on the score sheet again. Then in the semi-finals, we got drawn against KRC Genk. 4-1 win in the home leg. Boubacar Kamara, 2 for Pepe, 1 for Bailey. And then we lost the away leg 1-0. I did rotate even more than normal in that game because it just kind of felt as though we knew we was already through. And then against Fenerbahce in the final, Philip Coutinho, Ollie Watkins and Nicolas Pepe in a convincing 3-0 win. I mean, this season with Aston Villa, if you're looking for a team to manage in Football Manager 24 that isn't lower league or non-league, you know, you want a nice little save to start it off for yourselves, you can't go wrong with Aston Villa, because we go back to the transfers again. We look in here, we've not made a great deal of transfers. Yes, we brought in 7 players, but in all actuality, Pepe and Fernandes are probably the only ones we brought in as first teamers. Livakovic was brought in as a backup, but has ended up becoming a first teamer. Livramento, I love this guy in Football Manager, and I mean he's doing well in real life as well. There's every possibility he can reach that 5-star potential. He really is an amazing player. As a right back, complete wing back on support, he's 3.5 stars already. He's got acceleration and pace. He can cross the ball. If you have him in one of these two positions on attack, he can be really, really good for you. And I've just been so happy with him. And there is a part of me that would love to carry on playing this Aston Villa save, but I've got other things that we're doing for the channel, and I haven't got time outside of that to be able to keep playing more and more Football Manager saves. But he is just fantastic. I really, really do like him. In terms of players that I like as well, Nicolas Pepe, again, I'm going to go back to what I said before about not going by your real life judgment on players, because he won player of the tournament basically for the Europa Conference League. He absolutely set that on fire. You see here he's had 13 appearances, 2 of them as substitutes, but 13 appearances, 16 goal contributions with 11 goals, 5 assists, 3 player of the match awards, and an average rating over them 13 appearances of 7.75. He has been incredible in the European competitions. In the Premier League, he's got better as the second half of the season kicked in. He's ended up 28 appearances, 3 goals, 7 assists, 3 player of the match awards at 6.87. Considering we've loaned him for 1.4 million and a mandatory fee of 8.5 million to buy him outright, 10 million basically for a few years of Nicolas Pepe, I think has been a really, really good deal. Dominic Livakovic as well, 29 years old. He's entering his prime as a goalkeeper. 3.5 star. He's just fantastic. You know, you look at what he's done here, 7.11 average rating with 18 goals conceded, 23 appearances, 11 clean sheets. Again, fantastic. And you don't get as much of a risk with him as what you do with Martinez, although Martinez is a really good goalkeeper. As you can see from the players we sold in January, not a great well, actually, there was a deal that happened. We had Josh Feeney went out on loan to Ipswich. Callum Chambers left to Olympique Marseille for £79,000 monthly loan cost. And there's a £9.7 million loan optional future fee there that he's barely played for them. So I don't see they're going to be taking that loan option up. So unfortunately, he will be coming back, and he would be a player that I'll be looking at moving on. Yuri Tillemans has left the club. He's gone to Saudi Arabia. 50 million. Nice, lovely summer money. It was that sale there that enabled us to do a bit of business as well in January. Then Travis Patterson went to Sunderland for £500,000. He's a youngster. Aaron Ramsey went to Clermont on loan for £1.2 million. He'll be coming back to us this in the close season. And Louis Barry, Sheffield Wednesday on a loan deal for £22,500. So some business was done, nothing major was done. I think probably Yuri Tillemans is probably the biggest out that we've had. If we have a look at the squad, we'll bring it over so we can have a look at the total appearances. And for most people in a Football Manager save, your goalkeeper is top of that list. Our goalkeepers are further down because obviously we kind of split the season between the two. Ezri Konsa was their main man. 58 appearances altogether. 52 of those were starts. Boubacar Kamara, 60 appearances. 51 of those were starts. Diego Carlos, 59 appearances. 50 were starts. Douglas Luiz, 52 appearances. Coutinho, 54 appearances. They were the main five. Them five there were the main five in terms of the starts and how important they were to our save, really. And that they were absolutely vital. You know, they played such a massive role, all four of them. And why does this keep moving? I don't want it to move. Here we go. That's fine. So yeah, them ones there, in terms of appearances, that was the backbone of our team. You could probably include Livakovic. I say it a number of different ways. You can include him in that as well. Ollie Watkins had a good season, 30 goals in all competitions, 4 assists. That's 30 goals in 60 appearances. So it's a goal every other game. He does want to leave, by the way. He's handed in, or he's considering his options at the end of his contract, which is at the end of next season. So we're probably going to look at selling him, see if we can get a bit of money for him. There's a whole host of teams that are interested in him. If we look at his value, 43 to 47 million, we'd be looking at getting around 50 million for Ollie Watkins. Then we've also got Douglas Luiz, I think it is. Yeah, so we've said that we'll accept a bid of 54 million for him. He's got interest from a couple of clubs in Saudi Arabia. So if I was carrying on this save with them 2 players alone, plus some of the other players that I'll be looking at getting rid of as well, we could have a hell of a war chest going into next season. And we've already won the Premier League and the Conference League. We've got the Champions League coming up next season. We could have a really good team. Unfortunately, players like Ollie Watkins' reason for wanting to leave is he wants to go to a bigger club. And that kind of irritates me a little bit, because it's like, we've won the Premier League and we're in the Champions League next season. Do you not want to be a part of that with us? But, you know, if we look at his determination, I don't know what his determination level is. So his determination level is 15. So maybe it's just that he's that determined. He just wants to move on to a Man City, a Liverpool, an Arsenal, a Chelsea, whatever, you know, one of those type of clubs. But if we go back into the score, we'll actually have a look at the goal scorers. So Watkins was by far and away our top scorer. Then we had Nicolas Pepe with 14. Again, goes back to how crucial he was for us. Coutinho and Bailey both getting 9 goals. And then you're down to the ones. We had goals coming from a lot of different areas in the team. But yeah, it was pretty much these 4 were the main contributors for us. Diego Carlos's 5 goals would have all come from corners. So set pieces weren't overly helpful. If we then have a look at the assists, Philippe Coutinho, Nicolas Pepe, Luca Digne and Douglas Luiz, really good, solid for the assists. Matty Cash as well. As you can see, by Matty Cash and Luca Digne getting 16 assists for us over the course of the season, we've done well at getting assists from the full-back positions. Luca Digne, in case you're interested on how many red cards he ended up with for the season, it was 3. He did pick up a third one later on in the season. So he missed a few games with suspensions. So if he wasn't quite as much of a thug, then his 42 appearances could have been a bit more than that. So that's really all there is to show you in terms of the season review, how things went, and all that sort of stuff. So what we'll do is we'll skip to part 2 of the video now, where I'm going to just show you a little bit about how I do youth development in FM24. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so welcome back. And this is the bit where we're just going to have a little look into youth development and what I do within Football Manager and FM24. Now, there will be much more comprehensive guides out there on youth development. If you're looking for a massive deep dive into it, this won't be the video for you. This is literally just what I do. And basically, when I start a save, down here you've got your development centre, which you click on and you come into here. Any first team candidates you have within your development centre will be listed here. And according to this, we have 3 players that they consider to be first team candidates. You'll get some development advice over here. There's no development advice for Philip Marshall, but it is for these ones. So here for Tim, it says is now only considered to be a Sky Bet League 1 level central midfielder. He's currently 2-star ability with maybe 3-star, probably not going to improve a great deal. Looking at that, I'd say on the surface level, he's not going to be a first team candidate. You can click on him, have a look at his attributes, have a look at what positions he can play and how he can play them. This guy here, I don't think will really ever be a first team player for us. So he does have a contract that expires in 3 years' time. If you feel you might be able to get more out of him, you can continue to develop him. Now, to develop him, I go into training inside the players' area. For a start, he's got here Mazzala support. I don't want him playing as a Mazzala. In my central midfield, I have a deep line playmaker or ball winning midfielder, I believe it is. Let's just have a quick look. Box to box midfielder or ball winning midfielder. So I'd look at him. He's got long shots of 13. So potentially he could do a box to box midfielder. I would then look on him and come down to box midfielder on support. Now, because I've got it set up that my assistant does all my training, they do the first team training, they do individual training, everything. Because if I've identified this guy as someone that I want to specifically be responsible for, I'll just take control of this player's individual training. Okay. What you can then do is come into here to notes, create a note on him, and just title the note individual training. And then that way I know that I'm training this guy BBM support. And because I don't want to forget about him, I'm going to select a date to be reminded. And I'm going to say, let's say by the end of the year, so 31st of December 2024, set, only need to be reminded of it once, confirm. So at the end of the year, on the 31st of December, I will get an inbox item reminding me individual training, box midfielder on support. What I can then do is revisit it at the time and see whether he's improving at all. Now, I can also look at this and see, is there any areas that he's going to need to improve on? Now, finishing, it is a required part of the role, but it's not a massive part. Marking is part of it. Positioning is probably quite important. Decisions maybe. Anticipation. So if I come into the additional focus and I'm thinking, right, okay, positioning is something that I like the look of. Defensive positioning, which is currently been put on, does it for marking, positioning and decisions. I'm happy with that. So I'll just leave that as his additional focus is defensive positioning. If he was weak, for example, and needed more strength training, I could maybe come down here, strength and jumping reach. If they needed improving, I could select that, or agility and balance. But like I said, I'm quite happy with the defensive positioning being selected for that, so we'll just leave it as that. Then you've got Jean Duran, who he's a striker. I'm quite happy with him being a striker. If we go into his training again, we can see that these are his attributes. This is how he does with the role. But do we want him playing out here on the left? So let's have a look at attacking midfielder left, inside forward on support. Take control. Let's train him on here. He's young. He's perfectly able to be retrained. And then we can have a look, are there any areas that are highlighted that he particularly needs work on? They're saying final third. Again, I'm quite happy with that. There's no obvious weaknesses in this guy. And there's every possibility as well that I may decide, actually, do you know what? I think he is worth, because Cameron Archer is looking at leaving anyway. Ollie Watkins could be leaving. So I'm probably going to move him to my senior squad. And let's have a look at him in the senior squad. We've got pre-season will be coming up shortly. We can have a look at him in pre-season, see how he looks in there. If you want other ones to watch here, so what I'll do is we're going to our under 18s, and these ones here are guys that came in as part of our youth development or youth intake. Now, Jermaine Diaby is a central defender, defensive midfielder, 6'2". He's got a nice height. He can use both feet. I'm happy with that. I would like him as a centre back. Now, what's worth noting in Football Manager is between the ages of 15 to 17, you really need to focus on their training, get them all the training they need, all the right training. And it is literally, it's training between them ages. Once they get to 18 years old, then you need to look at how much game time are you going to be able to give them compared to, is it worth them going out on loan to somebody? Now, for Jermaine Diaby, we need to keep him here. We'll go into, as you see, he's improving nicely in quite a few areas already. We'll go into his individual training. He's being trained as a libero. I don't want him being a libero, I'll be quite honest. I want him being a central defender or a ball-playing defender. Now, his passing is 15. He can pass a ball. So maybe we go with ball-playing midfielder and I want him on defend. We'll take control of him. We'll go into the notes. We'll create the note. Individual training. And then in the notes section, we've got him as a ball-playing defender on defend. I'll set up a reminder date again for the end of the year in December. And we only want it once and we'll confirm it. So he will stay in the under 18s with that individual training. Now, what will happen as well is if you've got him, so at the moment we're training on defensive positioning. So I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say defensive positioning. If we come down and have a look at it, it's marking, positioning and decisions. So marking is 12, decisions is 10, positioning is 9. Yeah, we do need him to learn those, so we'll leave that as it is. What I'll also be looking at is getting his agility, balance, stamina, strength, all that to improve as well. So we will leave that as it is for the moment. If he gets to a level where he's not likely to improve much more than what he already is, you'll get a notification come through in your inbox saying Jermaine Diaby has improved. It may be worth changing his individual training. You can then go into it, change it, whatever. Normal intensity, we're fine with leaving it as that for the moment as well. If you do want them to have a trait, so let's say, for example, if we look down, who are we going to go with? We'll go with one of our defensive trainers. So Nash, passing, defending training. What can I do for you? I would like you to start coaching Jermaine W to throw himself into tackles. I would like to start coaching Jermaine to stay on his feet when tackling a player. I would like to start coaching Jermaine to mark opponents tightly. If there's any of those that you want, let's just say we want him to stay on his feet. That strikes me as a very poor idea. It's a trait that suits players with poor tackling, which isn't the case with Jermaine. I trust your opinion, so don't bother starting the training. Or you can tell him to do it. And that way you can get an idea as to, so with select movement, I would like you to start coaching Jermaine by starting to get forward whenever possible, to run with the ball more often, to run with the ball occasionally, to try to knock the ball past opponents when taking him on. I would like to start coaching to stay back at all times. Let's say stay back. That seems a suitable approach. I'll action it immediately. It's a trait that suits players with less than ideal movement. There you go. So he's now going to train that trait, basically. And you can just carry on doing that. Wait until you get the inbox notification saying that he's perfected the art or whatever to stay back at all times. And yeah, just carry on. If you want them to do another trait, just have a look through, speak to the staff, see what they're saying. It's probably, I wouldn't say it's an idea to have a whole host of traits, but just focus on what you think would be needed for the role that he's doing within your team, basically. So we come out from him, and the next one we've got is Anthony Green. He's about the only other one that came through the youth intake that I thought had any kind of potential. And or any potential that I would look at wanting to deal with. And as you say, even at the age of 15 years old, he's already worth potentially 18 million. I mean, that is ridiculous. So these are the positions that he can currently play in. Now you have a choice. You can either leave him as he is to train in the positions you've got him, or you can select a position that you want him to work in. So I'm looking at this at the moment. I don't really know where I think he's going to be suitable. I mean, I quite like the idea of a centre-back, but his tackling is poor, his heading is poor. He's got a lot of improving to do there. His passing isn't great either. If we go into his individual training, currently he's being trained as a defensive midfielder on Defend. I'm probably going to leave it with them to train him for the time being. I've got no need to interject at the moment. But if you did look at it and say, actually, I would like to have a box-to-box midfield, and I think that's where he's going to be best suited. I don't think that is where he's going to be best suited, by the way. But just in case you do, you can come into here, or maybe you want a ball-winning midfielder and you want him on Defend. And you can take control and get him to train that position. In terms of additional focus, strength is not great. So if we come back down here to strength, that will do strength and jumping reach. Select that, he'll start doing that. Jumping reach is actually not too bad at the moment. Strength does need improving and is improving. But that's the kind of thing you can do in terms of training players from a very young age. And like I say, between the ages of 15 and 17, it is very important to train them. If you come in here and let's filter by age at the moment. So in our under 18s, we've got these players. We've got Rory Wilson, who's 18 years old, could be a pretty decent player. Same with Caden Young, could be a pretty decent player. So if you go into Caden Young and go into his development, have a look at his training, have a look at if you feel you can use this player in your team. Are you going to be able to give him minutes in like the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, maybe the Champions League, maybe a Premier League game here and there? If not, then go to transfer status and click on loan status. At the moment, we've got him as unavailable for loan. So now we want to make him available for loan. So once we've got him as available for loan, you can set anything you want within this part of his profile, or you can go more in depth into his profile, which I'll show you now. Okay, so we're inside Caden Young's profile. Couple of ways of doing this. First of all, if you want to do it all yourself, go down to offer via transfer room. It'd be nice if that happened. There you go. Click on loan offer and you can set what you want his loan to look like here. Now, when I do this one, I leave it at end of season. I always put his agreed playing time to be either a regular starter or important player. For this occasion, I'm going to go important player. If you don't get interest by, say, the beginning of July, mid-July, just come back in and change that to regular starter. At least then he's getting regular playing time still. What you don't want is that people take him on loan as an impact sub or a fringe player, breakthrough prospect, because then he's not going to get game time and there's no point loaning him out. If you're loaning him out, you're loaning him out to get game time. If you have a preferred position, so let's just say, for example, we want him to be a winger on support and all. Oh, hang on, let's go back. Where's Caden Edwards? Caden Young, sorry. Caden Young. Offer via transfer room. Loan. So we've got important player, attacking midfielder, right. If you want to do preferred role as well, you can do winger. Okay. If you want a playing wage percentage for them, by all means go for it. Personally, I don't really worry about all of this when it comes to someone that I'm wanting to put out on loan, because I'm not worried about the money that I'm getting from. I'm worried about this part here. If there's any other loan clauses you want to put in, like a mandatory fee or an optional fee, all that sort of stuff, by all means, go for it. What you should always do is come back down here and click on can be recalled. I would then also put loan cannot be terminated. If you want to do can play in cup matches, can play for parent club reserves, I wouldn't advise it, but if you want to, go for it. But these are the two that I always make sure on: can be recalled, loan cannot be terminated, and then just click offer via transfer route. Okay, and then you'll either get feedback on clubs that are interested in him, or you'll get told basically there's nobody interested in him. Now, in terms of somebody else that's 18 and got potential, we said about Rory Wilson. Another way of doing it as well. So he's a striker, poacher, all that sort of stuff. If you come into the transfer part and go to add to development list, you get similar options here. So we want to click can be recalled, and we want to click loan cannot be terminated. We want him to play up there as a poacher, it says here. We're going to go for advanced forward. So let's click advanced forward. Again, we're not worried about the money, but we are worried about this. We're going to do important player. If you want to set the training facilities, you can. Sometimes it is worth saying that you want the training facilities to at least be good, because if they go into a club with poor training facilities, you then got to question exactly how much training they're going to get. Select a nation if you want. We'll just leave it as any. If you select a nation, you can then select the league. And then basically you're ready to add Rory Wilson to the transfer. If you want to put it on hold, you can put it on hold. You can select dates within here. But as this happens now, you've got him added to your development list. So if we go over it, I already added Caden Young as well. We've now got Rory Wilson, and our director of football, or our loan manager, will now look to finding loans for these two players, and then he'll let you know via your inbox as to whether or not you're able to do it. Now with Caden Young, we do need to just make sure these are changed as well. Can be recalled, loan cannot be terminated. Where did we say we wanted him to play? I can't remember now. We'll leave that as it is for the time being, but because I say it's not really important to this stage, so we're not going into it. But that's basically how I then look at players that I want to send out on loan. You can also do it by potential and say, right, who have we got here? Caden Young we've done. The 15 to 17-year-olds want to keep around. Not really a great deal more in here. So the next one is Thierry Katsakunya. Potentially 3-star abilities, a central defender. He's 5'10", so that rules him out for me anyway. But just have a look through your under 18s and then come into your under 21s and basically do the same thing here. You've got some 18-year-olds here. So Josh Feeney, we've already sent him out on loan to Ipswich for the second half of the season. He'll then be coming back. I need to now look at him and say 2-star current ability, 3.5 to 4.5-star potential. He's 6'2", central defender, ball playing defender, wide centre back. Will I make use of him within my team? If I am, I need to make use of him. If not, then I need to see if I can get him developing even more. As you can also see, you have got 23 to 27 million pound value on the player. So if you do bring him into your team for a season, your first team, you make some use out of him, get him some exposure, some game time, hopefully some good performances. That will go up, but you'll also get interests from other clubs, which at the end of the day, if you look at the Chelsea, Man City model of doing things, it's to get players in, get them a bit of exposure, sell them on because you're making pure profit out of that. And that will then help you buy players for the here and now, maybe younger players as well. But it's also worth looking at these players. So Josh Feeney, one of the issues this Aston Villa squad had is not having enough players that qualify for being able to be homegrown and all this sort of stuff. So again, it's a case of checking them, check their eligibility. Do they qualify as homegrown? They do. Therefore, we could have him in our squad as one of our centre-backs. He would be a backup centre-back at best, probably fourth, maybe even fifth choice. But he also helps us with the eligibility criteria for Europe. You've always got to bear that in mind. So that's pretty much the length and breadth that I go to when it comes to youth development. You do also have the option, once you bring them into the first season, we go back to Josh Feeney, for example. Where did we get him from? Where was he? So if we go into here, move him to the senior squad. Once he's back from loan, we can then go into the training part of it, go into the mentoring groups. We can create another mentoring group if we want, or we can just pick one of these groups that we think he would be best suited in. So for example, this one here, no one's getting any impact from this group. So let's just take out Douglas Luiz, who doesn't really want to be here. We can then look at adding Feeney or Duran. Where is Feeney? Is he in here? He's not. We'll use Duran anyway. So we'll just say Jon Duran, add player. He's now in that group and he's going to get a significant impact from being within that group. So always add your young players into this. You're best off having someone that can contribute an average to a high amount in there. And then, as you see from this one here, Luca Digne, he's not going to get anything from it, but Livramento and Calvin Bassey will get an average amount from being in the same group as him. It's also worth trying to put people in, so having secondary social groups in with the core social groups. When you look at your social groups, as you see, we've got two social groups, a core and a secondary. For me, that's fine. The more you can get in the core, the better. But I don't mind having two social groups. But if you do have a third social group, anyone that's in the third social group, try getting them in a mentoring group with one of these, preferably this one, so they can then move up and you only have the two social groups. So we go back into training, mentoring. Like I say, that's what we do. We've got done individual. You do have units here as well, which isn't something that's used by a lot of people. You have your defensive and your attacking and your goalkeeping. You can move people around between the various different groups if you wish. I'll be honest, I don't use it a great deal, but it's certainly something worth using if you've got a player that you want to be in a certain group. So it might be a case of we look at Livramento, for example, and we want him to focus a bit on attacking. We can actually take Livramento, move him over to this, and he will be a part of the attacking unit. You can do it for a certain amount of time. You don't have to leave it there forever. Again, if you only want to do it for 2 months, just set yourself a note on the play. Just go in there, Livramento, notes, and then just put in there to move him back to defensive units at a certain point. In terms of the rest of training, I'd never touch any of this. This is not where I get enjoyment out of it. You have this area here where you can come in here to rest people. I don't bother using this. I use it, as you've seen yourself, I just use this screen here to rest people. I don't use the training part of it. Coaches, I rarely touch that either, if ever. Schedules I don't go into, calendar I don't go into. I'll go into the overview maybe in order to just have a look, but generally that's what you get coming to your inbox anyway, the training performance, so you can deal with that at the time. And that's pretty much, and yeah, the only other time I come in here is if I want to praise training. I always praise anyone that's had 7.5 upwards. So I click on that, come down to 7.5. That's the last one of those, highlight those, and then I just go through these and praise the training. Same on the other end of the scale. If there's anyone that's not been training well, anyone that's under a 6.7, I'll then come in here. So at the moment, it would only be Buonanotte anyway. I then highlight how many of those there are and criticise their training. And that is pretty much it. I did say it wasn't going to be a massive deep dive into training or into youth development. I'm not the best of options, the best of people to go by when it comes to youth development. I get a good amount of young players. I'm happy with what I get from the game. But there are people out there, you know, have a look from them on YouTube that will give you proper deep dives in how to develop youth players and how to bring out the most of the potential that you've got in your players. It is fun when you get a youth player come through and turns out to be an absolute beast for you. You do get that sense of attachment to that player as well. And I would recommend you do it because you do get a sense of satisfaction from it. But anyway, that's going to be the end of this video. And like I said, it's the end of the series. Next week, we have something quite special planned for the Sunday 2 o'clock upload. So keep an eye out for it. You'll see it when it pops up. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. It will come up in your inbox. Drop a like on the video. I hope you've enjoyed the series. I hope you found it useful. And I hope you dig around and have a look at some of the other stuff on the channel. We've got some really good stuff out there. And thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.